Hello. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I'll turn myself up a little bit here. I think so, probably, maybe. I was trying to hook my laptop up to show you my little made, and I think I managed to break something. So do bear with me a second. But today, what we're going to do is talk about using Q and SQ in a studio setting. So kind of the concept and the abstract of it, and I'll show you some of the patching as well. Now, which one's that connected to? Hang on one sec. Let's open up this one. I think I can connect now. Connect. I'm going to plug in my last couple of cables. Actually, no, I can do that offline. That's fine. That's fine. Let's do this one here. Brilliant. Right. Everyone can hear me. Brilliant. Thank you. Anthony's here. Hello. Mark's here. Salut from Florida. iTown Musicians is back. Welcome. Welcome. If you haven't been before, welcome along for the first time. To give you an idea of what we're doing, it's pretty much me trying to help out with anything I can. But this week, rather than doing our usual Q&A, we are going to do a focused one. So we're doing a focus on studio, as I mentioned. So the first thing I'm going to do is quickly look at... Oh my goodness, it's tiny. I can't even read the screen. Slideshow from the beginning. From start. Interesting. I think it's shown up as a separate thing. That's why. Right, brilliant. Oh, look at that! It's like magic. I don't know if I can see what I'm doing on the screen. Can you see what I'm doing on the screen? Or is it on a different screen? Bear with me. Just going to connect that. Who else is here? Oh, Eddie's been tagged. So yes, the reason for doing this one is because I was asked to do it last week. I'm just laughing at Rich's. Is this an emergency broadcast? Possibly. It does feel like it with all the things that have kind of gone wrong for me today. Oh look! There's my. Can you see my cursor? It's tiny. It's like a tiny flea. There it is. Can I? I mean, I'm doing, but it'll be fine. Oh, this is genius. Right. Don't know why it's gone so huge all of a sudden. There it is. Right. Draw. I want to draw, please. Using a pen. It's not going to show up, is it? It's going to be tiny. It's going to work. Right. So the first thing we want to do, and I'm going to show you with Q, and then I'll show you some stuff with SQ. I should probably give you a bit more of an overview of what we're doing. We're going to look first of all at the routing, so the kind of physical setup and the routing that you can do within the console, within the mixer. Then we're going to look at kind of the monitoring and what the musicians need and require and how you can give that to them. And then we're going to look at the different pick-off points and how you get that into a DAW. So I'm going to use, or DAW, I'm going to use Logic and Reaper, hopefully, depending on whether it's tiny on my screen. And then we're going to look at DAW control. So I'm going to look at hooking up DAW control with Logic and Reaper and getting some faders, moving stuff on screen. So that's the plan. So we'll see how we get on. You can ask questions while I'm going through this, by the way. I will keep trying to check in and make sure that you guys can still hear me. Of course, that's the main thing. But yes, so first things first, physical setup. So what I've got on screen here is kind of a really basic setup. We've got the stuff that we want in the booth when we're recording, like in the studio booth, and the stuff that's in the live room at the top left. And obviously you don't have just a microphone and a set of headphones in the live room. You could have many microphones, but the concept is the same. So I'm not going to draw millions. So we want to get the mic signal into the mixer. That's really easy. That works exactly the same way as you would be using it live. So what I've done on my mixer here, I've got a Q set up. I've actually got an SQ running alongside it, and I'm just pumping out some signal to go into the line inputs, which is why I'm peaking these inputs, because I'm giving them quite a hot signal. So I probably want to trim that down a little bit. Let's go back down to about Actually, let's just leave it at 0 dB. Why not? I'm probably pumping out around 0 dB, so that should be fine. And I've got 8 signals coming in. So let's imagine those are our 8 signals coming from the live room. They could be obviously many, many more than that. It could be just a couple if we're overdubbing. That's the other thing I do want to cover today if we get a chance. So we got the signals coming in, and we can mix them and we can do whatever we like with them. I don't know if it's going to flicker around, but that's the same as you would do with live. You've got some faders here. You can pick a send. Let's pick mix 1. Let's say, actually, no, let's pick mix 5 and 6. Let's be generous to our musician and give them a stereo feed. So we can give them a mix. That's really simple. Hopefully you guys are pretty familiar with that already. The reason for doing that in the mixer is that you've got super low latency in the mixers. You've got far less latency than if you were to go out into your DAW and back out again. And if you've got that latency, I did do a whole session on this before, you will get like people playing and then hearing a note slightly later, and it kind of ruins the feel. So for monitoring, definitely do all of that with the desk as if it was live, as if it was a live show. That's the first thing I wanted to point out. What's going on here? I'm just seeing if there's any other questions coming in. Oh, people can hear me loudly. Douglas, hello. Can you hear me? Andre's here. Hello. Love the Q fonts and typefaces, it says Neil recording. Well, I do too, actually. Quite nice. So monitoring, that's done. That should be easy. That's exactly the same on Q and SQ. Use the mixes that are there. Bring in the signals as local or desync signals, and send them back out to the musicians. That's easy. The other thing to say with that is that, of course, that they can either use Me systems if they want. So you can use our Me systems with the SQ and the Q. You can use them if you're using them with our consoles. You don't necessarily need to have the MeU hub. The other beauty of the MeU hub is having Ethercon connectors, which you might not need in the studio because everything's a bit more delicate and a bit less touring, a bit less kind of roadies drinking beer and throwing things everywhere. So you could probably you'd probably be fine if you've got one of our consoles to use a powered hub. And if you want any help with setting that up, obviously just give us a shout using support.alan-heath.com, because there's a few things you need to watch out for. So that's one way of monitoring. The other way is to use the apps. So SQ for you or QU, and you can have the mixer connected up to a network or have it on a dedicated network. Again, the same way if you've used these mixers live, it's exactly the same concept. Have a router in the studio and have the musicians use the app during monitoring. So that's nice and easy. You have to worry about the monitoring. The other thing which we'll get onto is if we're multi-track recording, we can also do multi-track playback through the desk. So either using the Me system or using the apps is really good, because the musician's not going to keep asking you to tweak stuff when they're doing an overdub, because you can play it back through the same channels that you've previously used, meaning that their mix stays the same as they had it set when they were doing the whole live take with all the band. They can tweak stuff after the fact as well, so that they're not just getting a fixed mix or a stereo mix down. So that's quite nice. Okay, so what's next? Let's get we've got some signal back to them. Let's flip back over to this one. This is going to be in real slow motion with this pen. Right, so we've got some signal coming in. We're happy with that. And we've got some signal going back out to them so they can hear themselves. That's lovely. So the next thing I want to get sorted actually is what the engineer can hear. Now, we could have headphones. So let's plug those into the headphone port. That's fine. That's nice and easy. And then, as you will know, that's going to follow everything that you paffle. So you can paffle any individual channel. You're not going to interrupt what we're recording to the DAW. You're not going to interrupt what the musicians are hearing or anything. That's just for you. That's just your personal monitoring bus for you to check what's going on. And you could move mics around, or you could say, hey, hang on a minute, there's a weird noise coming from somewhere. It's usually a kick drum pedal, a little squeak, something like So you can narrow down things like sounds and narrow down problem things without affecting anything else that's going on. So that's your bus. That's your PAFL bus. You can then route that. So with a queue, I'll show you how to do this. With a queue, you go to Setup, and then you go to IO Patch. Can't quite see with the reflection. There it is. You go to IO Patch, and you have your Alt out and AES out. Now, I always recommend using the Alt out for your studio monitors. Partly because you can't quite see from my camera angles but you've got two controls right next to the headphone pot, one for your headphones, and then you've got one for your monitors if you set it up like this. So if I just tap on there, go down to the bottom, I can set PAFL. So that now means that the Alt out on the back, so that's on TRS jacks, so it's balanced jacks, you can use TRS to XLR. That's now copying exactly what you're hearing in your headphones. So now you have the option of wearing headphones, and so you might be doing some tracking and you want to really listen in intently, or you might be sitting back and you can be listening on the studio monitors, or you can turn them up and down really easily with the Alt out. The way to do that on an SQ, so similar setup, similar thing. The headphone out is exactly the same, but the SQ doesn't have an Alt out. So the best thing to do there is to use the listen bus. Can I? I can't share that screen. My second screen. Let me plug in my second screen again. Let's see if I can share that. See, scrabbles around behind something. Should kick it in, maybe not. But in your IO patch screen, you have inputs and outputs and tie lines. And in the output section, you have monitor outs. And in there, you will see listen left and right and listen M for mono. So if you patch the listen left to your left speaker, or socket connected to your left speaker, and listen right to the right speaker, that will then give you the same, because the listen bus is fed by the PAFL bus. So it'll give you the same signal in your headphones again. So similar to what we did with the Q, with the difference that you can set up the role of the mixer in a monitor mode. And if you go into those role settings, you'll notice one of the options is to have the master fader always control listen level. So the good thing about that is that in the studio, we're not often changing the main output level. So we don't need the fader for that. And it means we can reuse the master fader just to control our monitor speakers. It's not going to affect your headphone output. It's just going to control your monitor speakers. So if you go into the setup, I've got it over there. But if you go into setup, mixer config roles, there's a setting on the top right hand side, which is to use the master fader in listen mode. The other place you can see that is in setup audio PAFL, and at the bottom right there is a listen level, so you can control it from the screen as well if you need to. Andre's made a really good point, so I'm going to bring that up, which is PAFL clear and additive PAFL, and nice options to remember when PAFLing, which always sounds funny. Which is, so PAFL clear, you can set that up on a soft key, and that will light up anytime you've got anything PAFLed. It's the same on the Q and SQ, that there is a PAFL LED as well to know that you've got something PAFLed, because you might not be looking at the right layer. So the PAFL clear means that you can just clear any PAFL and go back to, if by default you're going to hear the left-right mix in the headphones. Additive PAFL means that you can select one at a time. So the usual operation, or the default operation, is to have additive PAFL off, which is you PAFL a channel and it will unPAFL everything else. I've said PAFL too many times now it sounds hilarious. But if you have additive PAFL on, you can then listen to multiple channels at once. So you could select all of your drum kit, for example, or you could select, if you're trying to narrow down where that sound's coming from, you could select a bunch of things and try and work out which mics are picking up the squeaky drum pedal. And then having the clear means that you can clear all of them at once, of course. So good point. Thank you, Andre. Michael Schneider says, is there a secret message? I'm going to say yes. No, I shouldn't say yes, because then people will try and find it. No, I don't think there is. There might be. It might be telling you about future firmware updates or something. I don't know. I don't think so. Okay, let's see if there's any more questions about what I've spoken about so far. Good question, iTime musician. So, what's the maximum number of phone or iPad that SQ4U can be connected to at a time? So, in terms of instances of remote apps, it's 8. So, 8 total instances of apps, 2 of which can be Qpad if you're using a Q, 3 of which can be SQ Mixpad if you're using an SQ. So, you could have, if you weren't using Mixpad, because you don't necessarily need to be using it in the studio, you might have the Surface in front of you. You could have 8 musicians all with controlling their own individual mixes. Or if you are using Mixpad, yes, you could have 7 or 6, but the total is 8. Good question, thanks. Ableton, so was it Marco's got Ableton? I was going to use Ableton today. Maybe I should open that one up as well. Neon Recording says, desk monitoring is a must-have. People don't come back when your studio has tracking latency. They might come back just much later. It's a latency joke there. Sorry. But yes, that's why it is so important. Cool. Okay. Maximum refreshability. On the 7 tablets, 1 Mixpad, never had issue. There you go. So Eduardo has been using it to its capacity. Beautiful. Williams saying, nice headsets. What brand? I don't know if you mean these ones, which my lovely Audio Technica is, or if you mean these ones. Now, these ones are custom headsets that I've designed myself just this afternoon, in fact. Okay. Dear, oh dear. Right, I should stop joking around and get on with this. So we have now done what we covered. We've covered getting headphones, mic'd in, monitoring for the musicians, and monitoring for the engineer. And this would be, and I mean, let's just say this: we've got a USB cable going between these, just to complete the whole thing. Right, USB. Oh, I've got to write in slow motion. Just so you're aware, I'm viewing this as it comes back to me off the stream, so I'm doing it in very slow motion. I should have come here 2 hours early instead of 1 hour early. Right, next is exactly the same, except this time I'm using an SQ, so everything else is exactly the same. So the only thing to note here really is that you can use expanders, of course, and that would mean that in your headphone outputs for the band, you could run a network cable into the live room. I should have put this in the live room, shouldn't I? That would have made more sense. And you could run a headphone amp straight off of those sockets. They are at line level. I know you can get little volume packs from various places, so you could plug it directly in. It's not really designed for that, so it's best to use a headphone amp if you can. But you can feed straight from there and from there and just have this single cable. And you're not going to lose anything. We're talking about latency. When you use the expander boxes for SQ, you're moving the conversion out of the console because it's become digital in the stage box or the expander. So you don't actually, it's not like you're adding loads of latency when you add an expander on, so don't worry about that. Edward is after 12 of the custom headsets. I'm just in talks with a really cool manufacturer called Alan Heath at the moment. They're gonna sponsor them. Cool. So that's easy. That's all fine. If you've got any questions, like I say, pop them into the chat, and then we'll start looking. Maybe I think the next most important bit is where are we going to record from? I've just realised I can open up Mixpad on here, so I am going to show you. Oh goodness, if it'll allow me. What happens if I unplug it? No, I shouldn't unplug it. Don't unplug it, Keith. Do I want to keep my annotations? No. I mean, they were pretty good, but no, it's fine. It'll be fine. I'll survive. Where is my Mixpad? Mixpad. SQ Mixpad. It should resize. Where's my cursor gone? It is tiny. There we go. So I can connect to my SQ that I've got running over there with some multi-track. Looks a bit dark, doesn't it? Sorry about that. Oh, this is what I was talking about earlier. And monitor out. There we go. And we've got the listen left, right, and mono. For me, I've got it set up. Yes, please. Going to A and B. So it actually is exactly the same as Q. Brilliant. Next thing, let's look at, I'm going to minimize this. Let's look, honestly, if you can see how small this is, let's look at where we're going to take signal from. So this is the same on both. Play from current slide. It's so small. So small. It'd be helpful if you could see it. It'd also be helpful if I got out of the way. Let me get out of the way. Hang on. Oh, there you go. It's better. Right. We want to record a signal that is super clean. The reason for that, I think, is when we come back to the monitoring thing and we're playing out multi-track from the DAW. And also because you can always process it later. So this is, you don't have to do this. There are people who much prefer to record with all the processing on and print to tape with compression and print to tape with EQ. And that's fine. The processing in these consoles is fantastic, and that's great. But just for the workflow I'm talking about today, the reason that doesn't work is because then you will be applying processing twice. Or you have to start messing with the setup quite a bit when it comes to monitoring for overdubs. So for this setup and this workflow, I am recommending a course of leeches. No, I'm recommending that we record everything super clean. Let me get my pen back. Come back, pen. Which means that we want to monitor from somewhere down here, from the fader sends that we were talking about, down here. And we want to save all of this processing, lovely processing, just for the monitoring, because then we can process it any way that we want, so that the musicians, are really comfortable and they're playing to their best. If anyone's ever done monitors for a band, they know that it's one of the most important things. It's very stressful, it's very hard work, but it's one of the most important things, because if the band's playing well, actually it makes the front of house job a lot easier. Not to belittle the front of house engineer, but something brilliant to work with. You're only going to enhance it and make it better, and you're not trying to fix stuff. In the studio, you want the band to perform incredibly well and be super happy and super comfortable, and just be concentrating on the performance, not on what they can hear and what they can't hear. So yes, use the processing for them. You can use it for yourself later in mixdown. So we want to record in this little gap here. So we want to come straight out of the preamp. And in a live recording, of course, you can go to Q drive or SQ drive. If you've got an SQ, and I'm not going to go into this too much today because it's more about the concept, you could route this out to the I/O port. So you could use MADI, Waves, Dante. And that's what you would want to use as well if you need higher channel counts or you want to record more channels. But the concept's exactly the same as if we were to use USB-B, which is what we're going to talk about today. So with SQ, you can record up to 32 channels and play back 32 channels at 96K or 48K. With Q, it's slightly different for the different models, but you can always record to USB-B all of the input channels individually. So you can always record. So if you go up to the Q32 core, for example, you've actually got 32 by 32, so that you can record all the mono channels individually. For the other ones, it's slightly different. You can record stereo as well, but there's slightly lower counts overall. And I'll let you go away and look at that. But the concepts are exactly the same. How do we record cleanly? Well, on SQ, you can patch using tie lines. That's probably the easiest way. The beauty of using tie lines as well is that, and I wonder if I can Alt Tab. Can I Alt Tab out of it? Probably can. Maybe can. Can't. Alt Tab. Tab, 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 tab. Is it going to show it? Not going to show it. Oh, come on then. Sorry, bear with. I have to end show again. I've discarded the annotations. It's fine. It's fine. So I'll show you on SQ because I had that running there. Tie lines, and you will see input sockets on the left-hand side here and output sockets on the top. Tie lines just tie those two together. So you are taking a signal directly from a socket and sending it directly to another socket, whether that socket is analog or digital. The beauty of that is that you leave all of the processing alone. The only thing that you're going to that's going to be affecting both is the preamps, because that's pre-digital, and obviously the tie lines are digital patch points. So input sockets on the left and output sockets on the top. So for our USB recording, I'm going to record USB at the top. And let's say I've got an expander connected. So I'm going to record, I'm going to patch S-Link inputs. And I can just patch and drag. I mean, I haven't obviously got anything connected at the moment. In fact, I'll tell you what, I could. Oh no, I've got no USB connected. It's fine. Let's do USB, because you can do anything. You can do anything you like here. Let's do. Oh, I haven't got local. Yeah, I do local. Local's fine. Right, local. Local inputs 1 goes to USB 1. Local input 2 goes to USB 2. Local input 3 goes to USB 3. So then when you come to connecting up USB and looking in your door, you know that 1 is input socket 1, 2 is input socket 2, etc., etc. It's the best way to do it. Keep it 1-to-1. Keep it nice and simple so you know what's going on. So that's the easy way to do it on SQ, is to use tie lines. You can then use your direct outputs for ME systems, or you can use them for sending out to effects, or you can use them for anything else, because you can have hundreds of tie line patches made up. So why not use them? They're there, they're separate, they're not being used for anything else in this studio setup, so that's fine. You can even use them. I've seen them used for backup recording. So if you really want to make sure, you might have your USB connected to your computer, but then you might want to run a separate old school hard drive recorder. Anyone remember ADAT machines? Maybe you want to run one of those. But you could use tie lines to patch those same inputs out to physical output sockets and just plug them into something else, a hardware recorder, a battery recorder, anything you like. Cool. And then on Q, the way we do this is, I'm gonna have to stand up a little bit just so I can see over the screen. Right. The way we do this is we use the USB audio patching, and handily, is that a word? In this screen, you can see a clean signal. So that will still allow you to use your direct outs, and you can set those up to be picked off wherever you want and send out to wherever you want. But your insert sends is going to be your cleanest option. While we're in this screen, the next thing we also want to do is make sure that these are 1-to-1. So I'm going to just touch on that, because by default, the stereo recording comes from 1718. And I'm going to just touch that, spin through. So I want this actually to be 17 so that they are continuous. So scroll back to 17. And then the FN button, the little function button, which is off to the left on the Q32 here. I just press that and it says +1. You can probably see just down here, it says +1. So I say +1 and I keep going and it will say +1, +1, +1, +1. So now if I keep pressing it, it's a really quick way to patch all of them. Hit apply, job done. So now whatever I have routed to input channel 1, which at the moment, if I select it, go to processing. So I've got that signal coming in there it's actually from the SQ. It's coming in on a line input, but let's say that's a kick drum. I think it is actually a kick drum. That's coming into that channel, hitting the preamp, It's being affected by some of this stuff here, but then the insert point, so this part here, which is used by the ducker or the effects insert, it's immediately sending it out, which means that it's not getting to the gate, it's not getting to the PEQ, it's not getting to the compressor, so it's nice and clean. Let's minimize this screen. So now what we've got, hopefully you guys agree with me, we've got clean signal coming in on either a Q or an SQ, and clean signal going straight out post preamp effectively. You can set the direct out to be post preamp, so if you're not using the direct out for anything else, you can use the direct out. I should show you that as well, actually, on the Q while we're at it. So if we go to my routing screen, I've got a drop down box here. If I can see it, and I can set that to be post preamp. So the post, the insert send is before the post insert, of course. Post insert is when it's come back in. But the earliest I can go is this top one, which is post preamp. So that's the other way of doing it very cleanly. So I've now got those going out to my door, and I am going to show you that, hopefully. Can I just mirror this screen? Why can't I just mirror this screen? It's going to be very difficult to do this on two screens. It mirrored it before. Stupid thing. It's so tiny. Sorry, bear with. I'll see if there's any more questions while I'm... there's quite a few questions. Okay, let me go through some of these whilst my computer's thinking about things. Can I use the console to front of house and recording at the same time? Yes, absolutely. So you can, using the tie lines on an SQ, you could be recording whilst doing your front of house stuff, or using Q drive. So SQ drive or Q drive, you could be recording directly to an SSD or an external drive whilst you're running your front of house live show. None of that's going to be affected. Just set it up, start recording, and then carry on with your live show. As long as you've done what I've said here and shown here and recording everything clean, then other than changing the gains, you shouldn't have an effect from anything that you do for the room or for front of house. Robin says, that's a good point, actually. Yeah. So Robin Howe, hello Robin, how are you? Worth talking about 96K giving low latency versus 48K giving smaller files. Yeah, so 96K, because you're filling up buffers faster and it gets passed on when the buffer's full, and there's a few other reasons, there's a few other things that go on in terms of processing, because that happens all the way through the chain. 96K is lower latency. It's half the latency. You double the sample rate for the same size buffers. You've got double the amount of data, so it fills up the buffers quicker, which means it can pass them on quicker. So yes, it lowers the latency. How can you think about that? Buckets of water. That's a good one. Buckets of water. So if you've got twice as much data, so one bucket is 96K, half a bucket is 48K. As you start passing those down a chain, like a bucket brigade delay, you would be filling up buckets much faster if you're filling up with whole buckets rather than half buckets. Maybe that works as an analogy. Maybe it doesn't. You tell me. I think you'll say no, it doesn't. Paul says, where do I get A&H merch? From your distributor. If you contact your local distributor, they will be able to help you. They can get stuff, and we also encourage them to make things. They've made some odd things in the past, but they can. We can provide them with files and help them out with logos and things, and they can make official A&H merchandise. Can you talk about the buffers and latency that the integrated USB port has? Yes. I will touch on it briefly. So there is there's a whole session which Eduardo was talking about there, where I was talking about latency with option cards on SQ versus USB, and USB latency is a ballpark figure. It completely depends on your setup. It depends on your computer setup. It depends how you set up the buffers, etc. If you've got a powerful computer that's everything's running happily and lovely, you can generally have lower buffers without any dropouts. If you lower the buffer, it's a smaller buffer, it passes on quicker, fills up the buffer quicker, which means that you end up with lower latency. And what we measure this in is round trip latency. So that's the time it takes for the sound to get, or to do a full loop. So the sound to get from the mixer into the computer and back out to the mixer. It is important for overdubbing as well. But generally the round trip latency, so to do that trip twice, once in either direction, is going to be around, I think I measured it out on that latency stream to be about 10, 15 milliseconds. So let's say it's 15 milliseconds. When you talk about pre-delays on a reverb, they might be like 20 milliseconds, for example. So it's not a huge amount, but it will be enough to put someone off the feel. And that's why we always recommend to monitor through the desk, because the latency through the desk, of course, with SQ, with Q, it's about 1.7, 1.8 milliseconds, something like that. With Q, we managed to get it down to 0.7. It's under 0.7 milliseconds. So it's actually it takes for sound to go that far. So I could have gone into an input channel, gone all the way through, done all the processing, come out, back into another input channel, done all the processing, in the time it's taking for my voice to get from here to the mic. That's about 40 centimeters away. Okay. How advanced? Interesting. Douglas is asking about Avantis. Now, obviously, I'm not the man for Avantis. That'd be Jack. But the concepts, again, that I'm talking about today are very, very much the same. Avantis uses I/O cards, so option cards, rather than USB. But all of the concepts are still applicable. The Sharpies are the best merch that we've ever done, Eduardo. That's my favourite bit of merch. But we do unfortunately have a lot of engineers working at Allen Heath, so I think we stole them all before they could be given out. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. Cool. Can you cover printing back into Logic when you're up to the part? Printing back into Logic. Oh, right. Yeah, cool. Okay, fine. That's a very good point with SQ. So Andre's saying about recording from the direct outs. In the files metadata, you'll find the name of the channel. So if you're recording from the channels to SQ drive, in the metadata on the recorded file, you will find the channel names. Jack Kenyon is here. Looks like he's been here for a minute. I've been doing other bits. Have we already done Waves cards? Do you have one connected? No, Jack. I'm sure you have one upstairs. You can plug one in. But hello, Jack. So Jack's the man for the Avantis questions. Is the same thing applicable to Q24? Yes, El Baba. Everything I'm talking about today is applicable to any of the Q range and any of the SQ range. I'm trying to keep it very general. The only things that are a little bit different are with the QPAC and QSB, because if you want to do dual control with those, you're using MIDI faders on the app. Still works exactly the same way. Still the same brain inside. Of course, the QPAC and QSB have the Q32 brain, which have the Q30. Mike is here. A bit late, but is here. Hello and welcome to the latency session. Sorry, I was a bit slow then. Just keep making jokes about it all day. Right. Let's see if I can get this to mirror because it's just so small. Main display. No. Mirror. Stop mirroring. Optimize for. Yeah, let's do that. There we go. Now I can see my screen. Optimize for my screen, not the other screen. Groovy. Does the other screen still work? Maybe. Maybe. Right. Presenter view. No, I don't want presenter view. Let's go back out to Logic. Reaper or Logic first? What do we reckon? Let's do Reaper. Okay. Again, a little bit dark. Probably should have tweaked that slightly. Oh dear. Can I share the screen? Can I log in and share the screen? Maybe I can. Okay, let's I know what I'm going to do. No, it's not going to work. I was going to download it and get it to work, but it's not going to. Right, tracks. Let's put some tracks in. So new tracks. And how many have got 8 things? So let's just put in... actually, let's put in 16. You'll see why in a bit. So in Reaper, you've got some handy little bits. So you can do things like select all. I can put them into record. And I can send inputs sequentially. Mono, 16 inputs. There we go. So now if you remember back at the beginning, I was tweaking gains. And the ones where I've tweaked the gain, 5 apparently, because the other 3 are still peeking their little hearts out. So let's trim those back to 0 dB there. Let's get this one around 0 dB as well. And see if those are happier. All right. Well, the music stopped, so happy. But let's just reset those. So that side of things is really easy. I'm sure you guys have probably figured out all of that stuff before if you've done any recording. The thing that Reaper's got, which I quite like, is having this matrix view for patching. Because it makes everything quicker, and also if you're used to SQ or you're using the Q app, you'll also be quite familiar with the patching. So the good thing here is I can unpatch all of these channels from the master. So that's my first thing, because I don't want those being sent to that master channel. So that means that, as you can see, none of those channels would now be going to this to my master fader here. I can just leave that down and I can ignore it. If I can also get rid of this. So until I'm doing a mix down, I'm going to have nothing patched. So just alt-click, get rid of the patching for the master output. I'm not using the master. I'm basically using this like a big multi-track tape machine now. So yeah, good, easy, done. The next thing I'm going to do is, well, should we maybe just do a little recording? That's probably easy enough, isn't it? I'm going to not record the channels I don't need to record, just because could record some silence. I've put those there for when we're looking at door control later. Right, so that's it. Hit record. Great. I'm recording some of that stuff. Lovely sound. Beautiful. Everyone's having a great time. Oh, this is a great take. This is a great take, guys. Best take ever. Keep playing. Go. Great. Save. Yeah, save all. Great. Done. Okay, that's my take. I can now select all of those, take them out of record. But now what I want to do is, well, I mean, I could have that and I could do what I want with it. I could now go away and mix it if it was just one live recording and done in one take. If it was the best jazz band ever and everyone recorded in the same room in one go, done. But let's say somebody wants to overdub something. So they've all got their monitoring set up like we talked about before. And now they want to play back those channels. Let's say we want to play back 7 of them back through the desk. So I need to patch the outputs back to the desk. If I brighten it up here, does it brighten it up there as well? No, just for me here, isn't it? Just for me here. Right, so I can also patch in this I/O screen. Channel 1, 2, channel 1, channel 2, channel 2, etc. So now those channels are going out to individual outputs. I'm going to loop this so we know that it's working. And hit play. Oh. Yeah, that'll be fine. Let's loop that bit. Jolly good. Okay, so now I am playing back from the DAW and it's going out to some channels. But what I need to do on the mixer is switch those channels to USB. The quickest way to do that is just to select the channel and then you probably can't quite see it from that view. Nope, it's just out of view, sorry. I'm going to just press the USB button and that will light up by the preamp gain section. And you can see on screen it's gone to Q drive, which is the default. So what I need to do now is change the source of USB. So I press the function key, change the source to USB-B streaming, and I can go back there. So now that is channel 1 that's coming back from my DAW into the input channel 1. Because I recorded everything clean, all the processing that I applied to input channel 1 is being applied just a single time again, because it's playing back from USB, but it's still having the same EQ applied to it, gate applied to it. Let's give it some EQ just so it's got some. So all of that is going to remain. Everything else is going to remain exactly the same. And the one person who needs to re-record, let's say it was, stop that second. Let's say it was person number 4, whoever that might be. I can then set up another channel. I might put this at the end because it's another take. I could put it next to it if I wanted to. I could do a take over the top in Reaper. And make sure that I'm recording from input channel 4. And go back over here. And if I go now to my source, so I could have pressed that USB key on loads of channels. I can also do it from this screen by selecting multiple channels. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to have all of them other than, there you go. So the first 8 other than number 4. So I can just press it again, deselect it to come from USB. So now it's still my local channel, still my local input for channel 4. So if I go to channel 4, it's still my local channel for 4, so that's still coming from that that playback from the SQ. But the other channels, see, there's nothing playing now. But if I go over here and hit play, and back over here, that's now coming back from my DAW. Hopefully that makes sense for Q. SQ is pretty much exactly the same, except instead of using that that source screen here, you can set up patches and you can set up input channel patch libraries. So in the I/O screen, you can have an input channel patch library. You could save the return from your DAW, and you could save the live, so from the S-Link or from the local inputs. So you've got these two things that you can sort of flip between. So one is your live with all your musicians in the studio. The other one is your playback, and then you could just switch 1 or 2 of those on a per channel basis so that you can do your overdubs. So that's the kind of workflow for doing overdubs. That's your workflow for recording with Reaper. I'll show you quickly with Logic as well, because it's going to be very similar. And then we'll do a little bit of DAW control because I've realized that I am massively overrunning as usual. Open options, quit. Okay, let's get back here. I'll see if there's more questions. Then plastic confirmation on MIDI channels on SQ, is that even possible? That's an interesting one, because other plans to include color information on MIDI channels and DAW control on SQ. Yes, it might be possible. At the moment, they are white with just MIDI channel 1, 2, 3, 4. Other than if you use A&H MIDI control and you're using DAW control, it can then send the names from Logic or Cubase or Ableton or whatever out to the scribble strips. So that's one thing it can do. But yes, we have had a few requests for being able to change those strips in the console itself. The reason you can't do it at the moment is because the MIDI channel strips are very separate from everything that goes on in the mixer core, and as part of all the audio processing. They don't belong in the same way, if you like. They're just control. They don't. We don't store where they are. We don't store the position of them. We don't store their names. We don't store colors for them. They are just control faders that do what the DAW actually tells them to do. So that's the reason they work the way they do. But yes, it has been suggested, and I think there is a thread about it on our digital community. Quality is something we get questions on. JL Copeland, 1 second. So the advantage, of course, of using a mixer for your audio interface and for all your monitoring and routing, and as a kind of a control surface as well, is that you've got one device that's covering lots of uses. So in terms of quality, no, I'd say you wouldn't. With options, yes, maybe. So Q is 48K and 24-bit, and that's fixed. So you don't have lots of options for sample rates and bit rates. That's what most people use anyway, so maybe that's not a problem for you. SQ can be 48K or 96K. It's also 24-bit in terms of the USB output. So again, if that works for you, that's great. You don't have to worry about it. So you don't have lots and lots of options in that regard. You can't record at 44.1, for example. So that's kind of where you're maybe missing out a little bit, but you're not really missing out in quality. Once it's become digital, and we've put lots and lots of R&D time into our preamps and conversion and everything else. Once it's become digital, then it's fine to go out to USB. So the interface side of things is kind of it makes sense as a bolt onto a digital console because you've already done all the hard work of converting from analog to digital and the processing. So I'd say no. You might be losing some options, which may or may not be important to you. But no, quality wise, you're almost certainly not going to notice a difference. Okay. This is slightly off topic, but I'll answer it quickly. The Atom mic frog. The band at my church wants a closed talk where they can talk to each other, or at least have one musician talk to the band through personal mixes. Is that possible with SQ5? Yes. So if you've got the personal mixers, the Me system, you can assign channels. You can have direct outs from a channel and have that mic not assigned to any of the mixes, not assigned to the main front of house, and send it back out to the Me system. You can send it through to monitors by using the assigns. You can also use tie lines if you wanted to. So if you literally just had a socket that you wanted to send out to without using any input processing channels, you could use tie lines. You could turn up the gain on that mic, and you could just have them talked directly to the Me system or to monitors. So yes, if you need help with that, support.alan-heath.com. Another quick question that's slightly off topic, but Devin says, will there be an update on the Keypad app on iOS? Yes, there will be an update. There will be an update for iOS 16. So iOS 16 isn't launched yet. That's going to be launched in a few months. I think there's rumors of it in the next 3 or 4 months. So yes, there will be an update for that. So if you are using a Keypad, probably don't update to the beta version of iOS because it's not yet supported at this time. If you're using a Waves card, I haven't actually read the whole question. He just clicked on it. In Bjornstad, if you're using a Waves card, can effects settings be saved in a DAW session for later manipulation? It depends where you're saving them. So with a Waves card, you're generally doing the processing. You can use Wave Studio, so you're doing the processing on a server, or you're doing the processing natively. So yes, you're already inserting those effects into the mixer chain, if you like. So yes, you can save them separately, but it is more of a Waves question separate. The Waves card side of things is an interface for the mixer. In this case, an SQ, could be an Avantis or a D-Live, that's an interface for the mixer to get into the SoundGrid world. So it's not controlling anything in SoundGrid network, and it's not you're not storing stuff with it in that regard. But yes, you could save stuff. Akikoro says, "How's it going?" Hello, Akikoro. It's been a while. I hope you're well. I've got a lot of studio frame. We're looking at this space in a minute. Okay. I shall, Zach. I shall. I'm at BC2. My space has been looking at moving to the SQ for space saving and to allow for location tracking, etc. Tell me how awesome the preamps, dynamic range, and tracking some of the onboard effects will be. Well, it's going to. First of all, it's going to save your back and the back of those around you. But yes, I think things have moved on to a point now. I remember probably 20 years ago now, when there was huge amounts of debates between analog and digital. That's largely gone away now. We've got to a point now, especially with the FPGA processing, with in SQ with DLive Vantis, where you don't go, oh, that's digital. It's still a bit more handy than analog, and still, I don't have to carry around my outboard racks and stuff. We've actually got to the point now where that's not an issue. We've got to the point with SQ and DLive with the XCVI core where the latency is not an issue. So it's kind of a for me anyway. It's kind of a no-brainer these days. I do like playing with analog consoles. I like it, but it's not like for me anyway. I do it for fun, if that makes sense. So it's not like, oh well, I can't get the sound out of this digital console that I got out of this analog console. So yeah, location recording. I'm going to be doing some location recording with an SQ in a few weeks' time, hoping to borrow some Prime preamps. I'll have to beg. I have to beg people around here to get hold of some. But yes, I don't know what else to say. The dynamic range is massive, especially if you use the decent preamps. So you can use like DLive preamps are great. The Prime preamps are incredible. So and the conversion there, that's where you're going to get the best version. Once it's digital, the processing in the SQ is the same processing as you find in DLive or in Avantis. So once it's digital, we've got that absolutely 100% sussed. It's the conversion and the preamps and a lot of those, if you want, it will cost more. So we kind of offer all sorts. How best to channel into analog EQ? Analog EQ. Okay, so Douglas would like an analog EQ. Stagebox, what about time alignment from that? So yes, there is going to be some time because you're converting to analog and back to digital again if you're inserting an analog EQ. I have talked about latency for the monitoring for the musicians, but there is absolutely no concerns with the latency for recording into the DAW. You can shift that around. You can move tracks around quite easily, and because nobody's monitoring or playing at the same time, the latency isn't an issue. So use the onboard EQs for the monitoring. You don't need to insert the analog EQ for someone to play. It's not the AMIC EQ or whatever. Just use the onboard stuff for the monitoring, and then that stuff later and play with stuff later on. This is too long. I shall quickly show. Anthony also wants to test drive. So brilliant. That's a very quick question. I'll do that one quickly. Roland is, does the SQ7 have an EQ for the overall mix? Yes, all of the Q consoles and all of the SQ consoles have mix processing on every output. So that's all of these group outputs, matrix outputs, and the main left right. And all of them have EQ, 31 band graphic EQ available on stereo on the. They also have a PEQ 4-band fully parametric 4-band PEQ. So yes, they do quite simply. Right, let's go back here. What I was going to do very quickly. Right, choose. I'm going to choose track type, audio inputs. Sending. Don't want mono. Audio inputs. Let's do one. Sending. Number of tracks to create. Let's do 16 again. Do I want to do bus? I want to do output. Let's do this. Let's do mono again. Right. There are my tracks. Let's switch this back so it's back to local. I'm going to do that the quick way, which is all local. And then got some tracks playing. Lovely. I reckon that's probably my voice, though. I've probably done something wrong there. Right, preferences, audio. Q32. Great. Select. So record. Hopefully I've got nothing further on. Close. It just stopped playback, hasn't it? Come on. Now repeat in a second. Bear with. Okay. Yes, I will. I'm going to do door control. I did do a whole session on door control. I'll show door control quickly because the concept is really important. But the setup there is a really good helpful. So that should help you out. Right. It is now looped back around again. Same with Logic. I've got these tracks in record mode. You can see the first 8 and I can record. There we go. So it works exactly the same way as Reaper. I've just set those channels up and you can visually. So on the left hand side here, you can see I've got input and output 1 to 1, 2 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4. Lovely. And I can let's loop that. And let's take them out of record. No, go out of record. But those will now be playing back in exactly the same way. I can do source and I can do all and I can do USB and close, and you can see I'm now getting playback from those channels again. So it works in exactly the same way with Logic or Reaper. Okay, to save time, I will show you this one. Don't save. Do I want to save that project? No. All right. So this is the concept. This is the important concept of door control, which is that there are 4 door controllers in the mixer, which is because the door control is it's emulating standard door controls. So the Mackie Control Universal or Huey. And those have 8 faders. So what we've done is we've got A&H MIDI control, which you can download, which is alan-heath.com/MIDI-control. And that's just an app that you can download for Mac or Windows. And what it does is it takes the standard MIDI that's coming out of those channels I showed you there. So that's just CC messages for faders 1 to 8 to 16, etc. And there's MIDI note on and off coming from the mute and select keys. To set those up in the mixer, so I'll show you on the cue. We go setup, we go control, and in the custom layer, so that's this one here, we say we want it to be to the end MIDI, and then we use our same trick as we use for the patching by pressing the function key, and we go all the way through, and we say, brilliant, that's it, done. They're now all MIDI. So I've now got, because I've got Q32 here, 30 MIDI channel strips. Activate those by pressing both layer keys. And then I come back over here. So I've now got just 32 channels coming in, 32 things coming in. And if I end that, get rid of that a second, and go up here, ANH MIDI control. And what I'm going to do is just quit out of that for a second and reopen it. So I'll show you this bit first. So in here, I can select Q series, and I have the Q hooked up via USB, so I can use MIDI ports. So you can see I can select the Q MIDI out there. Or if I was on the same network, did I connect this up to the same network? No. If I was on the same network, I could do this over network as well. The USB is generally faster, but audio will take priority. So if you've got lots of audio messaging going on and lots of MIDI messaging going on, it might drop some of the MIDI. With network and having that separate from the USB is doing the audio. The network and control messaging over the network is doing the MIDI, and it might be slightly slower, very slightly slower. I'm talking very slightly slower, but it will get all of the messages there because it will queue them correctly. So I can select MIDI through for now, and if I move one of these faders, you can see that little square down here is moving. So that's happy. That's all good. I'll leave that open, and I'll go back into Reaper. And I will set up some tracks. Actually, before I set up tracks, because this is a fun thing to do, let's go to Preferences. I haven't set this up before, so there should be nothing set up. I go down to my controllers, add a new controller, and I'm going to add in Universal. And because I've got, in fact, I've missed out a very important step. Let's cancel. The very, very important step is using MIDI through. I am using one of these. Today I'm going to be using Mackie Control. The MIDI channel is MIDI channel 2, and that is what you see when you go on the console to MIDI. It's that one, MIDI DAW control channel. Needs to match the MIDI channel here. This is the channel of the console, and that's inbuilt MIDI, so you can control the core. And that will change both of these. It'll always be +1. So by default, it's 2, and that's why on this screen it's defaulted to 2. Let's just make sure that it can still see signal. Yes, it can. Everything's happy. And let's try that again, and you'll see what difference it makes. So it makes 4 virtual ports when you're using Mackie Control or Huey. So now what I should see, because I only saw 1 port in there, and that's what made me realize. Now I want to go in here and select Mackie Control Universal. I should get 4. Hurrah! So let's set that up as 1 and 1. How many are they going to be? Well, actually, it's going to be 8. So I'm going to have 8. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I've got, I'm saying that I want 8 faders as part of my control surface, not 9, because some of the control surfaces have a master fader as well. Leave all that, ignore fader moves. Yep, that's all fine. Click OK, click OK. And now, if I go back to this screen, it might be a little bit flickery. As I'm adding stuff, so I've added a track here. I'll add another track. As I'm adding those tracks, you'll see on the console, they go up to 0 dB. So that looks like 8 tracks. Hey, guess what? It is 8 tracks. And if I move these faders around here, you will see the faders here are also moving around. And vice versa, if I move the faders over here, you'll see all the faders moving on my door. So that's really as quick and easy as it is to set up door control. I can mute those now. That's all automated. I can select different channels. I can select multiple channels. I can deselect channels. So I'm doing all of this from over here on my custom layer. And this works exactly the same on the queue as it does on SQ. It's just SQ. Instead of setting up that custom layer for the MIDI channel strips, you just need to drag and drop them as part of your strip assign. I would always recommend that you do one layer for this, and that's because you've got bank up and down buttons. So if I go back over to Reaper and I go a bit mad and I say, I mean, I have to go mad because I've got a 32 channel desk. So let's go up to 40 channels. So I've got a 40 channel mix going on here. But I've only got eight faders assigned. So let's set up some more. So add, I can do this. I can also use the extender. So I could do Mechatronic extender. It's going to use the same messaging. I'm going to put 8 again. But this time my size offset is going to be 9. I can never remember if it's 8 or 9. Okay. But basically this is shift them along by a bunch. That work? Let's go back here. Oh yeah, that's done them all. So that was right. Okay, so I just need to do that a couple more times. So you set this up for as many faders as you want to use. So on the Q32, I'm going to use all 4 of them. On an SQ5, I'm probably going to use 2 of them because I've got 16 faders on one layer. On a Q24 or an SQ6, I'd use 3 of them. Go 3. And now it's going to be, what did I say, 9. So 16, 17. And size tweak 8. That's my next 8. And over on the other side, you can see all of these now lining up. So one more to go. Add another control set, another extender, number 4. So using these virtual ports. And now I've got 17, 24, 25. And again, it's going to be 8 wide. So that's all done. I've now got all of these assigned. So I can move any of the faders on my desk, and you can see I am controlling all of the faders in my door, like magic. And if I go in here, the next thing I want to do is use, let's say I'm going to use soft keys 5 and 10. So control soft keys 5 is going to be door control, and it's going to be bank down, apply. Soft key 10 is going to be a door control, and that's going to be bank up. Beautiful. So now you can't quite see because it's slightly off over this way, but I've got soft keys that go up and down. So I can now go up and down banks without even, there we go, without even needing to do anything on my mixer. And that's how, if you've only got 8 faders assigned, or you've got 16 channel strips like on the SQ5, you can bank up and down between hundreds and hundreds of faders. Cool. I'm going to wrap it up because I've gone on far too long, and I'm sorry I didn't get through as much as I had hoped. Maybe I'll have to do another one of these another time when the technology hasn't exploded just beforehand. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Let's have a quick look if there's any last questions before I do leave you in peace. On the queue, can you pan channels on stereo aux outputs independently of the main left-right mix? Yes, you can. That's done quite simply by, can I show you on screen? I can show you the routing screen. So if I select the left-right mix, and I go mix sends, you'll see I've got individual pan controls here for there you go. Individual pan controllers for all of the mixes. So you can see if I move one of them, it doesn't move any of the other ones. So yes, nice, easy question. Zach says, consider me pushed. I'm with you on the analog digital thing. Yes, analog is fun. Sounds great. That's good. But in terms of having a tool that does everything I need it to do, and having much faster workflows now, I do need them. Rob Smith says, update please, Plaza meetup. I will be around. Didn't want to ruin anyone's stand or gate crashing. We do have great friends, of course, Audio Technica, our UK distributors. But yeah, we'll be hanging around. If you find me, I'll make sure I wear an Alan Heath shirt. How about that? Then you've got a better chance of finding me. If you find me, I'm going to take probably some lanyards like this, some stickers and stuff. So yes, please come find me. Please come say hi, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And if we can find a console, I'm happy to show you anything you want to know. Okay, I think I'll wrap up for now. I will try and do another one of these in future. But if there's anything else that you guys want me to cover in more depth, rather than just doing a Q&A, just let me know. I'm more than happy. This one was partly for Anthony, who was asking for it for his friend Eddie in New Zealand, I believe. So yeah, if you guys say, hey, show me about this thing on Q or this thing on SQ, just let me know. Take care, and I will see you again at some point. Cheery Pip.